Greetings, God bless, and praise the Lord. I just wanted to share some thoughts I have. I just started listening to a conversation interview of Professor Olle Johansson, episode 20 of Anna Maria Mihalcea. Her Rumble channel is Humanity United Now. And the interview is called Dangers of EMF Radiation. So that's Professor Johansson. And he was talking about how he does he does presentations, and so he said to a group of experts, think how much our frequency or electromagnetic frequency exposure probably has increased since before, when we were just on the telephone and just using radar, like from World War II or something like that. And so people are like, oh, and these are like the dumb people. These are the people who are not who don't do any research, who are not profiting off of killing us. So, and they're not working in the electricity industry, because if you're in the electricity industry, you know that stuff is going on just from your power lines. But anyway, people think, oh, the government protects us, so frequency, since the time we had telephone wires and electricity in our walls, we might be at 3 levels higher than we were before, with the added cell phone towers and stuff. And so Professor Johansson is saying that we are in the 10 trillions. We're in 18, I think it's 18, it's like 18 zeros. So we're in the 10 trillions of how much more electromagnetic frequency exposure that we are all exposed to. And I think this applies to the de-evolution of human behavior. Keep in mind, in 2020, they installed all these 5G cell phone panels during the lockdowns. They used unmarked vehicles to do these installations. And keep in mind that in China, in Wuhan, in January, they rolled out their facial recognition program, which required 5G panels be installed every 10 feet. Okay. So January, Wuhan, 2020, every 10 feet, 5G was flipped on. And people were dropping dead. They were bleeding from their ears and eyes. And of course, we didn't hear much about that, but we heard, some people came down sick because of the wet market, So when we have electromagnetic devices, frequencies, and I would include mobile phones along with cell phone towers. And this is, I don't have everybody's mobile phone. I don't have everybody's cell phone towers. I don't have everybody's specifics, but this is what I'm wondering about. So when we have these frequencies, and these frequencies are wavelengths, would we agree that electromagnetic frequencies are wavelengths, and these wavelengths, they can actually move mass. They can actually move through the air, and they can move air. And so it's my understanding that the 5G removed the oxygen from the air, because there's just so many 5G panels and so many frequencies that there's actually less oxygen in the air. And so when there's no oxygen and people are being active and stuff, organ failure occurs. So there's organ failure. That's what I wonder, if that is what happened in Wuhan, is people were suffering from organ failure, and this thing that they called an infection was actually organ failure from oxygen deprivation, along with poisons that were being exposed. Before January 2020, Hong Kong was having a lot of protests. Hong Kong was protesting many different things, the tyranny, but they were protesting bad air quality from the coal manufacturing plants. Now, the thing is, it's 2024. You can install filters so you don't pollute the air, but for some reason, China pollutes its air. I remember reading Dr. Mark Hyman. He had done some residency or something in China, and he got so sick because of the air pollution in China. And he was talking about, when he was working there, I don't know if it was the 80s or 90s, but it made him so sick that that's what got him into alternative health, or that's one of the influences. So my point is that for some reason, the trusted agents of the public good expose us to toxins. China has been doing it for some reason, poisoning the people with coal smoke, so people get sick, exposing people to basically making them suffocate in the air. I mean, it is interesting that when oxygen is depleted because of high frequencies of 5G, and people were wearing masks, so they were suffocating themselves this way, and then with the 5G, that removed the oxygen from the space, and then that would happen in America as well. And of course, the trusted agents of the public good are not going to tell us this. The FDA is a private organization, probably. CDC is a private organization that has patents, that own patents on different vaccines. So the CDC is profiting off of calling something an infection and providing the solution. Just like the Federal Reserve Bank, it's not federal; it's a privately owned business. It's not a bank because it's this private mafia, and it's not a reserve. It's not a governmental organization. But anyways, so there's all this corruption, and the corrupt are in positions of power that we're brainwashed to trust. And so we have all this terrible level of electromagnetics that we're being exposed to, our children are being exposed to, the most vulnerable people are being exposed to, that nature is being exposed to. Because the left could care less about humanity, but they do seem to care about the earth, unless you're some high-level person who hates God's creation, so you want the earth to be terraformed and, zapped to death. But so we have this crazy amount of electromagnetics that's depleting the very air we breathe of oxygen. And it's also affecting our biology. It's affecting our brains. It's affecting our physiology. And so I think that it's affecting people's brains. So they're making poor decisions. We have all seen since like 2020, like how people are being extra crazy. I mean, yes, this has been going on before 2020, but it seems like to have intensified. And so, and something else that I think is kind of like a scientific way, perhaps, is that wild animals are behaving differently. A few months ago, sea otters were attacking surfers and their surfboards, and the otters were taking big chunks out of the surfboards. And there's been a lot of dog attacks worldwide. These are packs of dogs killing people, killing adults, killing children. Uh, and this is in Asia, in America. I don't think I've seen a lot in Africa, in Latin America, but there's a lot of this going on in the United States, where packs of dogs are killing somebody who's jogging. There's two dog families where the two dogs kill the owner or some family member or a caretaker. And I do not recall, I've been like following this kind of news since like 2017, and it was happening in 2017, 2018, 2019. I was not seeing anything to the level where it's a statistically significant amount of animal attacks. And this also orcas have been disabling boats off of the coast of Gibraltar, I think is the right word, Sea of Gibraltar. So this is happening like every week that these killer whales are disabling boats. This was not happening. This has not been happening frequently as it is now. That wasn't happening in 2019. That wasn't even happening in 2020. But this past year, there's been more wild animal attacks. Bears in Japan, a lot more people being killed by wild bears coming into town. And I don't know, you know, and so we're in this crazy soup of doom. But I'm wondering if the electromagnetics are altering behavior not only of humans but of animals, and it's probably killing certain members of like the food chain, because what I notice with blue lights, everywhere there's a blue light. Like there'll be broken roads, but they've made sure to install the new 5G bright blue lights, and no bugs ever go near those blue lights. So of course, everywhere is probably spraying Roundup to poison everything. Because when I was growing up, there would be blue bugs around the streetlights. There'd be bugs at the windows trying to get in, and there'd be bugs at the porch lights. I don't think I've seen maybe one or something like that in 2024. And when I think even growing up in New York, I mean, there would be a lot of bugs, a lot of flies and stuff. Not that I want more flies, but it is very, very different. Like if you were just born in the 90s or in the early 2000s, there were a lot more insects. And so what lives off of those insects? Birds, songbirds, and just like little birds, insect-eating birds. That's a large amount of creatures. And so then what eats those birds? This next level of like predator, mammals and whatnot. And so then what eats that next level of mammal? That would be probably bears and whatnot. So everybody's like, oh, bugs are too inconvenient. Birds are too inconvenient. So let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of smaller prey creatures that normally would feed the bears, because that nature is too inconvenient. And so then we have starving bears. I mean, I don't know. I'm just speculating. But, off the coast of Santa Cruz, off of the coast of Gibraltar, animals are being aggressive to humans. And so I'm wondering if it's all this 5G frequency. I mean, these are mammals that I'm talking about, otters and orcas. So I'm just wondering if all the 5G stuff is altering behavior. And lastly, so I grew up in New York. I've always been a pedestrian, and I've always walked everywhere. And I would say it seems like the sun is searing these days. It seems like it's super hot. Like when in 2020, I think it was, that I went to South Dakota, and the sun was really blazing and it was really punishing. But I don't remember it. Like, I mean, like some parts, yes, it was just too much to bear. But so I'm in Arkansas, and it just seems just it's like I can't even step outside before it's really hot, and searing. Like where I feel like my toes that are being touched by the sun are going to go on fire. Like, I've never had that recurring experience, that sensation, until like 2024. And I mean, I've lived in places that probably had more 5G stuff going on, because I lived in Denver last year, for a year. And there was less oxygen there because it's a mile high in Denver. And so there's factors there. But I don't remember it being so uncomfortably hot there. So what I'm wondering, since the 5G stuff increases the EMFs in the 10 trillions, so that's 18,000 zeros. So when we have 5G and it's like zapping the oxygen out of the air, and there's just it's like a wind, like let me just like, and I'm asking this. So when you have 10 trillions of electromagnetics zapping everything around, because there's no control. Like, I haven't watched it, but people have talked about quiet weapons for quiet wars or something like that. Like silent weapons for quiet wars. I think that's the name of the documentary, talking about how cell phone towers are killing people. And it's weird. Like, there's some people, like these people who claim to be truthers, and they're like, there's no such thing as electromagnetics. There's no such thing as cell phones harming. Like, what? It's like, I guess they're trolls. I guess they're professional trolls, because there's so many people who've talked about this since the beginning, who are having an experience since the beginning that had no interest. They could care less if they weren't interested in having an issue with mobile phones or radar or whatever, and yet they did. And then there's these professional gaslighters who are like, there's no problem having radar in a mobile phone. Like, attach a mobile phone to your head for 10 years and let's see how it goes. And I bet they wouldn't. And I'm talking about Andriana Love. Like, yeah, I was trying to be open-minded, but man, she was like pro injection. She was like, there's no problems with just look at the ingredients. Then you get injected. Then you take the full, what is it, like hundreds of shots that little kids have to take, like when they're like a year old or something like that. You do all those injections. You have your children take all those injections and say that it's good for you. But back to the electromagnetics that we're exposed to in the 10 trillions. So when we have frequencies, basically this constant low intensity wind that's removing the oxygen from the air, and like, does it dehydrate everything? Does it make things drier? Does it make things hotter? Because it seems to me that the sun is getting hotter and hotter. And I knew somebody in maybe like 2016, 2017, who was saying that folks were noticing that the stop signs are now getting bleached out. Like, stop signs weren't getting bleached out like, 30 years ago. But now stop signs get bleached out. And so it implies that there's something up with the sun. And folks are saying that, and this is a little bit out there, but that the natural sun isn't out there, and that there's these solar arrays that are out there. And so it's like a fake sun, a fake second sun, and that they're trying to hide something from being seen in the sky, because apparently there's these celestial bodies that are being captured on the FAA, like the weather websites, the weather cameras. But I don't want to go into that. But so all these electromagnetic exposure that we're having, number one, we don't understand it. It's totally out of control. It seems like it's some sort of stealth population like genocide, just like kill everybody, except for whoever, you know, is able to withstand. It's like this survival of the fittest thing. Because when I look up like solutions or whatever, number one, it's like they're always like you got to spend $1,000 or $5,000 just to begin to use some sort of measuring device or some sort of gimmicky thing. So it's like you have to really be rich in order to survive this. And how are people going to become rich? Okay, it's like in our culture, it's like you have to be part of the mafia. That's what I'm realizing. Like everything is about human trafficking, drug dealing. That's what makes the world go round. Even if you're some sort of like big name in alternative health, because that's what happened. I was taking a class that one moment was saying that we needed to interact with people, we needed to hug people, we needed to be outdoors. And the next moment they were like, douse yourself in hand sanitizer, stay at home and suffocate yourself. It was just like, it's crazy. It's craziness that we're in. And people are so willing to sell you out, even if they're alternative health practitioners. They're incredible sellouts, posers. Um, yeah. So my thought is that with the EMFs, so we know that Roundup is a desiccant. Like they use the reason why people are having food allergies. They use Roundup on wheat, so they use it to protect from pests. And then they also spray an additional dose of Roundup because it dries up the wheat to make it easier to harvest. So, and Roundup is used on other products like oats and whatnot. So, when somebody eats Roundup, then it kills your microbiome and all this other stuff. But uh, if it's so, we've got Roundup that it doesn't leave the environment, so it goes into the watershed or whatever, and then we have rain, so it evaporates up, and then comes back down in our little bubble that we're in. And I know everybody's like, we don't have a firmament. Space goes forever, even though we don't have any way of really getting there or showing it. And all the evidence we have is basically like, but anyway, sorry for digressing. So we have Roundup that's drying things out because all these forest fires. When I was in Montana, I moved there in 2013, and then there was like a forest fire. I think was it the summer of 2013 or 2014? Anyway, all these firefighters died, including the manager of the group, and it was like people were like, it just went so fast. And the thing is, because we're using pesticides, it's my understanding pesticides contain venom. And what's an antidote to venom? Tobacco. And what's very similar to venom? Those spike proteins. But anyways, it's interesting how it's like all connected. But when we have pesticides, not only used on our agricultural crops, but it gets into the general water supply, like it rains down on forests. So forests are drying out, and who knows if these pesticides are killing the biome of the forest. So the forests are unusually dry because there's these chemical applications. And who knows what when they're fighting forests, they use these anti-fire fighting, the anti-fire materials that probably kill the microbiome of the forest as well. So we have these like dead areas. So that's making people sick because when you have a completely dead area, what comes in? The cleanup crew, which is like mold and whatever. and people can't handle a whole forest of mold, you know? So my realization is that there's like the chickens are coming home to roost when you're using um, like desiccating pesticides everywhere. It gets into the water supply, so it's going to dehydrate your forests, so you're going to have faster forest fires, and nobody's prepared for that, and we have a decline in communication skills and caliber of people who are working in the positions of the trusted agents of the public good. So they're all on drugs, they're all visiting prostitutes or molesting children, they're all drunk or whatever, and nobody cares because they got that job because they knew somebody, not because they're qualified. And now we have the whole leftist you know like virtue signaling hiring situation going on, and we're seeing how that's not working with you know stuff falling apart generally. So we already have Roundup drying everything out, and then we have these EMFs in the 10 trillions that are probably adding a layer of drying things out as well, and zapping wildlife and so forth. And so I just wonder if that is um, you know like why things seem like hotter. And the leftists are like, it's heterosexual white men that are um, that are responsible for this. And if you look at the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, BlackRock, Vanguard, who are the people? They are white men, you know? I mean, the left likes to say it's Christian white men, but these aren't Christian white men. No Christian that has a relationship with Jesus would ever be involved in something so evil, because Jesus will be so disappointed, and there's an accounting that comes to a Christian's life. So when a Christian is doing really bad things, they're not a real believer. They don't believe in God. And there's a lot of Christians that I'm realizing don't believe in God because they don't choose they don't know the Bible, they don't care about the Bible, they don't care about studying the Bible, they don't believe the Bible. So um, it is interesting though that it is white men, white heterosexual men that are the problem. I was watching this talk about artificial intelligence. Oh, I forget the guy, but he was this total evil guy talking about like hacking, the human brain and using it against people's will for, just because. And it's not Noel Harari, that guy. It was a heterosexual seeming kind of a guy, and that's who's destroying the earth. Yeah, there's like a woman here and there that's being evil, like a biological woman, because a lot of women that are in positions of power, like Kamala is a man, Oprah is a man. Just look at Oprah talking about being molested. She talks about somebody touching her penis. Why would Oprah be talking about somebody molesting her and touching her penis if Oprah didn't have a penis, right? That's because she has a penis. And this has been going on. Marilyn Monroe was a guy. Um, Marilyn Monroe was the same person that played the role of Jackie Onassis. So So they're always playing this theater at us. And we must be significant for them to do all this, to try to keep us focused and entertained. And they're focusing on all humans. So I think humans are very important. Christians especially are targeted, but for some reason, like, all humans are being targeted by Satan. And yeah, like, I mean, we're in a fallen world. It's an evil world, and we're here to help people learn about Jesus. And the Bible tells us about Jesus. I recommend the King James Bible, and look up Bible studies online. You can find a personality type, a learning style that fits you, that suits you. We are so blessed with the internet, that we can learn about God on our terms. And there's no excuse. There's no excuse for people. Like, people are figuring out all this minutia about, how to dress a certain way, or how to build a certain thing, or how to eat a certain something. You can spend a little bit of time learning about God. And I'm not saying you should do it 24/7. I'm just saying, like, once a week, twice a week. Like, your eternity, isn't that worth it to you? Isn't it an investment in your eternal life worth anything, any of your time? Because it's clear there is a God. It's clear we are supernatural beings, and witchcraft does not cut it. The New Age does not cut it. Buddhism doesn't cut it. Hinduism, Islam, like, they're incomplete. And it really is clear, once you sincerely look into Jesus, and that he came to set his captives free. His burden is light, his yoke is easy, that he wants to protect the vulnerable, and doesn't want slaves, doesn't want human sacrifice. um, it's so different. And the thing is, all Jesus wants you to do is believe. He doesn't need you to sit and worship him slavishly, 2 hours a day, or do whatever. I mean, he wants you to be in relationship with him, because he wants to help you. So yeah, we need God 24/7. But he's not saying kill yourself to be in a relationship with me. He's saying, I'm here for you. But if you're going to accept help from somebody, you have to have, like, a little bit of attention. So you're like, oh, okay, you're going to give me help. Let me accept that help. Like, you have to have your wits about you, so you can, so you can accept the help. So, anyways, a lot of Christians don't know Jesus, unfortunately. They, I don't know what happened to them. I think maybe they just did church because their family did church, and they wanted the inheritance, the money from the family, the benefits from family. And yeah, this is a rough world, so it makes sense that maybe people just did what they were told to do, and they never really had an existential crisis, like, is God real? Can God withstand my questions? Because I think people are too afraid to ask God questions. I think people are too afraid to look into it. They don't want to be rude to God. And God is there. God is big enough for you to ask questions. God can handle you being rude, and it's not rude. It's not rude to say, God, are you real? Prove it to me. God wants you. God is about informed consent. He expects you to be an adult, um, capable, responsible. He expects you to perform the due diligence, because your soul is at stake. So, of course, you should do due diligence. And I think, like, a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't want to offend God by asking. Like, God is not like, have blind faith and believe in me. There's nowhere in the Bible where God's like, just, you don't know anything, believe in me. At least not that I understand. where we are right now is we are supposed to believe on what he did, his success, because he was victorious. He defeated Satan. He psyched Satan out. So because he elected to pay for our sins, to redeem us, to save us from the jurisdiction, to remove us out of the jurisdiction of Satan, if we should so choose. Now, that's why we have to be informed. We have to understand what's the situation we're in. And that's why people need to read the Bible, the King James Bible, because everybody has to be accountable for their sins. The wages of sin is death, and the life is in the blood. So what Jesus did, so God incarnated as a human being, and Jesus lived a sinless life. And then he was like, I'm going to pay for everybody's mistakes. And so he shed all of his sinless blood, all of his life, and he died, was buried, and resurrected after 3 days. And so when we accept that Jesus took a bullet for us and that he wants to be our substitute for our mistakes when we meet God, so when we meet God, God sees Jesus on us because we have accepted what Jesus did, and we are covered in the what's called the blood, which is this sinless life. So we have this sinless life that God sees when he looks at us, because we have done our due diligence, and we have, in our informed consent, we have developed our informed consent. We've become informed, and we've consented to what God did for us, what Jesus did for us. And then, so when we meet Lord Jesus Christ, he's going to see the innocence that we have because we accepted what Jesus wanted to do. And so that's what people need to research. That's what people need to understand. We are saved. The gospel, the good news, is that we are saved according to 1 Corinthians 15, 1-4, Romans 3:25. So we believe on the death, burial, and resurrection and the shed blood of Lord Jesus Christ. So that is much more different than just believe and you're going to be saved, right? Because that's like there's a technical thing. You have to understand that number one, Jesus is God because he could die and resurrect. He could die and make himself live again. And not only can God die and live again, he created everything because he's the creator. That's why God is because he's the creator. He can end something and begin it because he's God. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling. So we believe that God is God. We believe that Jesus did a transaction to get us out of the jurisdiction of Satan. Like, why did we become under the jurisdiction of Satan? Because Adam and Eve rejected God when they ate of that fruit. Like, Satan is very seductive, because Satan will tell you a truth. Satan is he's the root of propaganda. He's the root of marketing. So the telecom people will be like, you'll be able to download a movie in a second. They don't tell you you have 10 trillion waves of toxic stuff that's killing your body, killing your baby, killing your cat, killing your dog, killing the trees around you, killing all the insects and the birds and the mice and the hawks and your plants and your gardens and your farms. They don't tell you that. They're just like, oh, you get to download a stupid movie that you can watch in a second. That's how Satan works. And people are so brain damaged, they don't even realize how much they're losing just so they can be on their phone, so their phone works faster. Like the decline of civilization, the decline of America is totally like goes hand in hand with social media, but just phones. I mean, I think people are on, they're playing video games. I don't even think people are binge watching TV shows anymore. It's like TikTok. So people are dependent on their devices because they don't realize there's anything better out there, and that the human experience is actually better than scrolling through videos. And it's hard. It's hard interacting with the other human beings because it's a fallen world. But yeah, if you have a family, if you have friends, if you have somewhere where you get to interact with people, do that. Like, get off your phone. You're going to be so much better. And I think that's why, like, this whole trans agenda thing is so popular. It's because it gets people off of their phones. It's so incredibly tragic. But when a kid is like, I gotta change my identity, then the parent is able to get their phones off. Then, because it's such a big thing, it's a very validating thing. And also there's this, now the new medical, income stream. So that there's, all these hospitals, you're getting all this like really positive reinforcement, all this positive face-to-face reinforcement at the hospital. So the parents getting positive reinforcement, the kids getting attention and positive reinforcement that they never got before. So, it's just like this, like, humans are being hacked. Humans, like Americans, are so deprived of humans, of we're so deprived of relationships, of friends, of just pleasantries. Especially, I think the lockdowns, it just made everybody, the lockdowns and the riots, because the riots created this antipathy, I think is the word. So people they were lonely before 2020, but it's like, it's worse, 10 times worse, because now with all the political shenanigans, people are alienated from their friends, they're alienated from their family. So they were lonely in 2019, but now they're even more desolate. Like, it's terrible. So then a kid is brainwashed in school that they are a different gender, and then that starts this whole ball rolling where people are using great human qualities for evil, because they're, these people, these psychopaths that are trying to brainwash kids to get sex change. They're using what we know to be like friendly mannerisms and, good listening skills and whatever, because it's a new $1 million industry to get. I mean, especially the government is making sure kids get sex change operations. you know it's pure evil, because in medical, like, not only, yes, guaranteed income from government forcing sex change operations, but that then these children become lifelong patients because they're permanently disabled, they're maimed. And so then these poor people keep going back to these doctors who, like, they're making their living off of maiming children. So anyways, we need God. That's all I'm saying. We need Jesus. It would be such a blessing if he came soon, because I just don't understand it. I don't understand um, this level of torture and suffering that's happening. And I mean, I believe in God. I believe God has the answers, and He's in control. I just don't. I'm not. I just don't like what appears to me unnecessary suffering. And so that's why I do these videos. I'm like, I'm not exact. I mean, number one, don't let your. I think kids shouldn't be in school, because it's a crazy place, and I think, like, I'm not exactly sure what to do about the electromagnetic frequency exposure from our phones and cell towers. I mean, somebody needs to be held to account, and we definitely need to mitigate that, to stop it, figure out something. I mean, because I've heard, for some reason, when they choose frequencies, they always choose the most harmful frequency. So 5G doesn't have to be at the frequency it's at. It could be at a different frequency. So we just need to get the Satanists out of the trusted positions and set the frequency of things like 5G and electricity to a healthier level. So what do you guys think? Thanks for watching. God bless.